going to tell you how I saved 100K before I turned 24. I've always wanted to start my own business, and I'm not a trust fund baby, so I had 6 figures of student loan when I graduated, so it wasn't that realistic for me to start right away. First things first, let's get out of the way. I spent literally 3 years interview prepping to land a 6-figure job upon graduation in big tech. What my friends did that I didn't do was go to the sexy brand names like Google and Meta. In fact, I had final round interviews at all these companies and I ended up canceling it because the reality is a lot of the wealth that you get in big tech is not actually from your salary, it's from the stock you have in the company. I ended up accepting an offer with the company called Atlassian because at that time their stock was super undervalued. And then literally a year into working, that stock had 3x'd in value and I sold a bunch of it. And I did not put it in a traditional savings account, I put it in a CD, certificate of deposit, because you actually get a higher return than a high yield savings account because the way that it works is you can't actually touch it for a fixed amount of time. I was saving money to eventually quit my job and start a company. I didn't need to touch that money for a while. I also ended up getting a 30% raise and got promoted, so I ended up putting that in the CD as well. The way that I got such a big raise was not because I was the hardest working employee, but because I was super vocal about the work that I did. I would literally spend 30 seconds a day screenshotting what I did, putting in a folder so that I could use as leverage later on. Next thing I did was actually pretty obvious, but I literally spent no money. I would eat all my meals out of the office and I would literally take to go for dinner. I lived out of a closet room in San Francisco that was less than $1,000. There was no space to even put a desk. I obviously had the financial means at that point to upgrade and have a much bigger room, but I was like 24, like I don't need things. And I'm literally spending the entire day at the office. Like what is the point of having a fancy place to live at that point in my life? Last thing I did, which is arguably the most controversial, I told my manager, hey, like I don't think Atlassian is the place for me to be. I genuinely want to take some time off to consider it. Would you be interested in giving me a paid sabbatical? The worst case was that she would say no, and I was anyways planning to quit. But at the end, she said, you know what, take the time you need. We really don't want to lose you as an employee. And I ended up getting 3 extra months of pay without even working. Don't be afraid to ask for more. The worst thing that I can do is say no. And if they say no, I already had a backup plan and I was perfectly prepared to leave the company literally the next day. So yeah, that's exactly what I did. I came back from my sabbatical, I gave my 2 weeks of notice and I quit my job and I started this company. I was able to save almost 3 years of runway in my bank account to build this business stress-free. And it's not even been a year of my business and I'm already making enough money where I wouldn't even need to tap into that runway.